Alright guys, Vila back again. So I wanted to do a little breakdown video of like how Bungie actually introduced issues with their supposed patch that they were going to bring in, which basically their whole idea was they were going to minimize the melee spam and minimize the stacking, but inherently they made it worse. So the outline for the video today is what led Bungie down this path, breaks down why abilities are as broken as they are now, and then I'll show you guys in-game how to actually maximize in your own builds. So what led Bungie down this path? The main issue that Bungie was facing was that we were able to stack almost everything together, and basically they wanted to get rid of the constant nerfs that they constantly had to bring in, where they prevented us from doing this, prevented us from using that. It was just too complicated for a new player to understand that oh, you can't use 1-2 punch with a throwing hammer because it's too broken, it stacks too high. So they wanted to simplify that. So what they did was they changed everything melee related to be an additive stat. So how additive stacking works is instead of using like multiplicative statting, so that would be an example of multiplicative statting would be like 2 times 2 times 2. Now it's more so like 400% would be plus 4. That's like an example of combination blow. It would be plus 4 plus 1.65 plus 1.5, and then you have your multiplicative statting. So you might be asking, how did Bungie actually make this worse if you just said that the stacking would be worse because you're not doing multiplicative? Well, the issue is they gave us way too many buffs that we could actually stack together. That's the issue. There's a lot of additive buffs now that do a lot more than they did pre-Edge of Fate. In the final shape era, like combination blow I believe was plus 200%, it was not plus 4, right? And that was multiplicative. But now that they've given us way more buffs that'll actually stack in full effect as well, that's the other thing they got rid of. All buffs now stack with full affection. They're not stacking and doing like half of the damage. They're stacking in full effect. So the main issue now is they gave us multiplicative stats, and these are not like small increases. These are big increases. So the melee stat is a 30% increase, and that's multiplicative. So any other multiplicative statting that you would have will stack with it. So basically you'll take your plus 4, your plus 1.65, your plus 1.5, add those together, and then you multiply by the melee stat. And grapple is actually the most special case. So before Final Shape came out, the general idea was that the more buffs a certain melee build had, the worse it would get, because once you change that all the additive, it would be worse. But because grapple melees benefit from 2 different multiplicative stats, they're actually better because the additive stats got big enough buffs to where the grapple melees actually stack higher than pre-Final Shape, because grapple melees now have 3 different multiplicative stats. They have 3 different multiplicative stats that stack in full effect. And then on top of that, they have multiple different additive stats that also will stack in full effect. So if we were to do a breakdown here of like what your actual raw like increase multiplier would be, you would go 1 for your base damage plus 4 plus 1.65 plus 1.5. Then what you would start to do is you would then start to do your multiplicative stats. So your melee, then your nade, then your courage. So you go times 1.3, 1.65, and then times by 1.1. So your raw increase in damage is a 19x multiplier. To give you an idea of what this was before Final Shape, or before Edge of Fate, before Edge of Fate, this multiplier was like a 10x, 11x multiplier highest. This is a 19x multiplier. And like grapple melees on hunters are by far the easiest to stack. By far. You get 20 seconds of combination blow. Syntho is like slightly situational, but has decently good upkeep, because anywhere where you'd want to use grapple melees, you're gonna have ads. You're gonna want ads. You technically don't need to use 1-2 punch. Right now it's like kind of good because you can use it right in the middle of the animation of grapple melees. But yeah, honestly, they made this problem for themselves because they gave us a lot of multiplicative stats that are not small, and then gave us a lot of additive buff increases. But I digress. Moving on from grapples, because everybody's already heard enough about grapples this season. Throwing hammer. So throwing hammer had some of the fewest buffs that would actually benefit it. 1-2 punch did not stack with it. I believe Syntho potentially also did not stack in full effect. And then Roaring Flame was like, I don't know if it did stack with hammer. I don't know. But right now, they're super good. Like throwing hammers are unironically like one of the best builds on Titan, other than just using grapples as well. Because you can get pretty close to hunter grapple melees on a Titan. You'll be decently close. Because the only thing you're really missing, so like you can get with Worm God, you can get basically like your equivalent of combination blow. And then you'll have Banner, which will give you a +1. So that'll be like your equivalent of like almost Syntho. Then you have your 1-2 punch. So basically, really, you're only missing about like 0.65 of a buff. But obviously, when you have a melee increase, a grenade increase, you know, it's a bigger difference. And then what compounds that is faster courage. The times 1.1 multiplier, that's another thing. But throwing hammers. So throwing hammers before Edge of Fate did not work with 1-2 punch. You cannot use a 1-2 punch shotgun with throwing hammers. So now because they made everything additive and they want you to be able to stack that. They want it to be less confusing. You now have these additive increases, and then you have your melee stat. So Throwing Hammer now has way more additive increases. Before Edge of Fate, it had basically no melee buffs that would stack with it. Almost everything was not stackable with Throwing Hammers. Now you can stack everything in full effect onto the Warlock equivalent. So Lightning Surge had the fewest possible buffs that were benefiting it. So an obvious candidate to be just better once Edge of Fate came out. So the only buff that you would actually be able to use with Lightning Surge was Syntheseps. Before the timer change on 1-2 punch, you would not be able to get the 1-2 punch increase with Lightning Surge. Now you can, because it's 3 seconds. And you even have the option to use Bastion. So like Warlock, Priz Warlock has one of the worst unstop stuns in the game in its kit. So we're actually, technically now you can't freeze unstop, so it's got like almost no unstop stun. So basically Bastion's like a decent pick, unless you want to use like unstop hand cannon. Or not hand cannon, unstop. Yeah, it is unstop hand cannon. What am I talking about? But yeah, Warlock Lightning Surge, obvious candidate, had only 1 buff benefiting it, now benefits from multiple. It benefits from now an extra 2 with the multiplicative statting, and then an extra additive stat. Alright, so now we're gonna hop again and break down basically how you can maximize your builds. So, showing off 100 grapple melees right here. A lot of people will tell you you're gonna want to maximize your class stat and then get your grenade set as high as possible. I would recommend just running fonts to do all of that. So instead of trying to get your class stat to like perfect 70 without fonts, just run fonts. You're gonna be running fonts anyway for your melee and your nade. So there's almost no reason why you wouldn't want to just be running a class font as well. I see no reason why you wouldn't. There's nothing here that you'd actually want to run over that. You don't need a special finisher because you're basically going to use no special ammo on this because you're using all abilities. You don't need bomber because you're going to get your grapple back in 3 melees anyway without a bomber. Simply because of Immos. I would always recommend Immos. At the higher end of armor, when you get to like tier 5, tier 4, really running a renewal class item like renewal Syntha doesn't make that big of a difference. Not enough to warrant you like sacrificing Immos, because if you miss 1 grapple and damage, you're cooked. You're out of a grapple for then like 40-50 seconds. So to break down grapple melees on Hunter, I would say for your like full on damage setups, like your raid DPS scenarios, don't use blessing. So don't use blessing. You would use this like in like brawn situations. So like brawn modifier is very common in grandmaster content right now. You'll use brawn and then you use faceted blessing. That way you can get heal on grapple melee and then a little extra heal on combination blow. I would just run all 4 stat increasers. Do not run faceted dawn. Do not run this. The majority of bosses and the majority of champs in just general play, you are going to just one-shot them with grapple. So don't run faceted dawn. You do not need it. You're going to use all abilities. So I would go all stat increases and run it that way. So the other thing is, don't go for straight up 200 grenade. Sacrifice grenade and then run 2 fonts. So this is my pre-setup build right here. I want 1 heavy-handed just so that I can get orbs going into the phase. I have 2 time dilations to keep the buff up. Going into DPS scenario, I swapped to a 1-2 punch shotgun with navigator still. Same fragments, obviously. You'll want as many increases as you can get, and you'll use whichever ones that you need for your given scenario. You'll want to hit at least 160 grenade, and then you'll use double font. The best way of giving yourself the best total statting is going 160 grenade and running 2 fonts that way. Because Grenadier armor, if you get it to roll the tertiary and melee, you're gonna need a lot more. You're gonna need a lot more melee. So I would just run like a lot of melee, and then don't worry about your grenade because you're gonna double font it to get it to 200. Or you have the option of using the Festival Flight. So the Festival Flight has a perk on it called Blast Distributor. What that'll do, if I can find it, if I have one sitting in my vault. Here we go. So it's Blast Distributor on Festival Flight. Splash damage, grants improved grenade stat. Basically at 5 stacks, this is a stacking buff. It'll go to a plus 65 on the stats. I don't like to opt for that because it's kind of annoying to upkeep. You have to shoot it under the boss. I just wouldn't do it. It's not worth like the extra effort that you're already putting into like a build that already takes stacking to get to. But yeah, I would run. So for your damage setup, I would go triple fonts because most of the time, good majority of the time, you're gonna have orbs going into a phase. Somebody's gonna be throwing down a well. Somebody's gonna throw down another tether. You'll have orbs. Okay, you're never gonna run out. And then I'm running 2 fonts just in case. So like, I'll give you a good example. So Hobgoblin in Desert Perpetual, during phase, he goes up, obviously. So you're not gonna be doing grapples when he goes up, obviously. So you'll want to have good class stat. I would run 2 class fonts to do that. Like absolutely sacrifice your class stat to get higher stats here. So that basically means that like all your pieces are gonna roll the tertiary in like all your Grenadier pieces are gonna roll tertiary melee. And you're not gonna run any class stat. This one doesn't roll any class stat, it just has a class focus. Okay, so that essentially wraps up Hunter. The highest you can possibly get Like my armor is not like absolutely optimal, but basically like the highest you can get while maintaining 70 class stat with fonts and while maintaining good statting on everything else, the highest you can absolutely get is going to be 200 and then 160 with no font and then 180 with font on the melee. So your statting would be with absolutely optimal armor, which I'm very close to. The only thing I'm missing is really just getting these gauntlets to roll the tertiary and melee and have the focus on melee, which would give me 160, 160, and then 30 on the class stat. And then when you add fonts, it would be 180, 200, 70. So that's the absolute highest you can get without buffing everything up with the GL. Because basically, technically what you do if you're running the GL is you would like nuke your grenade stat and then you would just get 200 melee. But like I said, it's another hassle to think about during damage phase, so I opt not to do it. Oh, and then also for the faster 1-2 punch swaps, I would just like, you don't really need to run anything here, so I would just run weapon fonts because that should give you faster swaps. Because the weapon stat is actually like a handling multiplier. It's not just handling stat, it gives you like a handling duration multiplier. So it like fundamentally like reduces your handling like duration, not just like changes the initial value. Like it'll change like a higher value to be even lower than just like reducing the base value. It's hard to explain, but it's better because it's a duration multiplier instead of like a duration like effector, I guess. All right, moving on to Titan. So I've already talked about it, but here are Titan grapple melees. So Titan grapple melees again. Basically, you're gonna run fonts for almost everything. This one I don't have. This is my pre-build. This one is not going to be running any fonts because I want to build up orbs. And it's like my stats are already pretty strong on this one. And statting honestly on Titan is easier. You don't need to worry about class stat. You only really have to worry about melee and grenade. Maybe super if you run out of your grapple, if you blanket. Going on to the DPS build, basically same as the hunter, triple fonting. This one I'm running 170 melee, 195 grenade, and then 140 super. I'm running tractor cannon, then I'm running 2 1-2 punch shotguns. That way when one of them runs out of ammo, I just swap to the other one. So that's grapple melees on Titan. And then here's Worm God, Cuirass, Throwing Hammer. So basically the same as the grapple melees, but way simpler. So this one you can just absolutely maximize your melee stat, and then you'll want to get like as close to high grenade and high super stat as possible. You'll use fonts obviously. And then basically like this is like the weapon setup I would use. So I like my retrograde with chain reaction, temporal blast. This is just a good like ad clearing weapon in general. It's very good for that. And then like obviously solid major damage and boss damage to be fair. Just all around great pick. Then you have return memory. I pair it with impromptu ammunition because the way impromptu ammunition works is it actually does a multiplier of your ammo gen stat. So whatever your ammo gen stat is, if you have a high ammo gen stat on another weapon, it will actually like multiply it. It's a multiplicative change to your ammo stat. Yep, pretty similar to everything else. These are the fragments, pretty standard. Like basically fragments on solar, you can be like pretty loose with them and just like basically mess with them for statting. They don't really matter, like I've already said. You don't need Ember of Torches. It doesn't matter. Like honestly, you're gonna one-shot everything with this anyway. So just don't run Ember of Torches. I'm running Thermite Nade because Thermite Nade's pretty good. It's like pretty strong with the enhanced grenade stat. Incendiary Nade is like an option, Fusion Nade as well, but you know, Thermite Nade is just good for killing like big lines of ads. Fusion Nade on Titan is like not great unless you're on Ashen Wake. Speaking of Ashen Wake, I'll actually show that off too. This is mainly a video about melees, but here's Ashen Wake. So again, you'll go fonts. This one I actually get to 200 nade pretty much, and then I just font into my melee. The reason I'm fonting into my melee at all is because like Ashen Wake, the way you play this build is you're not really going to be running like close to the ads. You're going to throw the nade from a distance and then run away, right? So I want to buff up my throwing hammer a little bit. That way I can get an orb from throwing hammer, and then I have my fonts. I have my fonts active then. Oh, and then I didn't cover this for the hunter, but almost every build now should run a stack on stack, because the pre Edge of Fate era, everybody was just running triple heavy-handed, right? So you had a 1 second cooldown on orb gen. But the way it is now, fonts are so important that you're not really genning that many orbs. So you'll want to be getting 2 armor charge per orb, because you just can't rely on getting a kill every 10 seconds. Like if you're playing fast, you're not really going to be getting like a kill every 10 seconds, and you're going to be skipping ads. So keeping your armor charges high using a stack on stack is very good, because it'll essentially give you 2 armor charges every orb. And then obviously again, time dilations. I use special ammo finisher on Titan because special ammo is a lot more important on every class but hunter, because you're not really going to run anything. You're not going to run anything else in terms of like special weapons. You're not going to run a primary, because double special gameplay is extremely good this season. So I would just run 2 specialists and then run special ammo finisher. because really like the ad clear of Solar Titan is not like outstanding. So I mean it's good, but like Ashen Wake, unless you have like certain modifiers like buffing it like Grenadier, it's not great. Because if you don't kill the ads with a nade, you're just not getting that thing back. You're not getting that sucker for at least 30 seconds like it says here. So yeah, I mean you really do need like some weapons to give you better ad clear. Yeah. So yeah, that's the Titan. They're all gonna be pretty similar. They're all gonna use a lot of fonts. Moving on to Warlock. So Warlock is like my least played class this season because it's very weak. So I did say Lightning Surge got a buff, but it's still very, very weak. So Warlock actually got a slight glow up this season. So obviously Lightning Surge has a buff because the additive changes and then you get more multiplicative buffs that would actually benefit it. So yeah, Lightning Surge got a buff, but the main differentiator is the Festival Flight. This thing makes running this build so much better. So the main like gripe that I have with the Warlock kit is that the freaking Transcendence gen for Darkness is terrible. It's the worst Transcendence gen you'll see in your life. So basically, you'd be like, oh, why not run Lost Signal? Even Lost Signal's not good. I don't know what it is, but like Strand Weapons, for some reason, gen way more like Darkness energy compared to Stasis. So I'll actually take this to the shooting range here, and you'll see this thing like actually mogs Lost Signal. It's not even close. And what makes it even better, so let's pull this one. What makes it even better is you can actually run Facet of Bravery, and when you get a melee kill, it'll give you Unravel rounds, and then Unravel rounds will spread. So we'll start off with Lost Signal, we'll compare. And then like going into the stat distribution, it'll be about the same. I don't have very good stat distro on this character, but yep, again, it'll be super fonts, melee fonts, stack on stack, scavengers, and then time dilations again. All right, so you can see like how poor that is. So that's Lost Signal, and then you compare this to Festival Flight. And you can just see how much better that is. And it actually gives me my like entire Darkness meter, just like that. Then I'm actually running a Storm Nade to get my light side even faster. So here, I'll get it real quick and I'll use it. Actually, I can just do this. Yeah. So you can obviously see Festival Flight, Strand Weapon gives way more. And I'll even retest just for those who are saying I didn't hit 3 targets. You can see there, like, it's obviously good, but what's better is this one. This one is like drastically better because just having Unraveling rounds is already better. It's just Unraveling rounds, man. They're too strong. They spread, they have good ad clear on their own. It's just not even like a question about which one is better. Like just taking the base ad clear alone is good. You know, running Festival Flight is super good. And then I'm running Binary Orbit. The reason I'm doing that is because you're always going to be getting like a Lightning Surge kill. So you basically perpetually have like a 25% like damage boost always. So you'll see here. So now I have Unraveling rounds. And this should spread. Yeah, so there you go. You see what I'm starting. I'm running a Storm Nade because the light energy gain is actually like worse than the darkness. You gen darkness energy so fast now that it's actually worse. Like running like any like type of darkness, you'll actually want like more light gen than before. Like before, like light gen wasn't an issue because the darkness gen was like so pitifully bad it like didn't make a difference. But now you like obviously will like really want that that light gen stat to keep up. If you did want to build that's like actually fun to use and that's good, I would just use Sunbracers. Like Sunbracers are super duper good because you compare that with Song of Flame, and then basically you get your entire melee back and everything after you use Song. You get a strong build on a class that's fast because you get access to the dash. You get good healing. You're basically immune to anything when you pop Song of Flame. You get super good weapon damage, super good nade damage. Like honestly, just Sunbracers on Warlock are pretty good this season, honestly. Pretty much the same exact statting like package, basically. Fonts on everything. You'll run stack on stack. You'll run elemental charge. Strand Scav. This is the only build I actually run a primary on. Yeartide is pretty good. And in combination with Song of Flame, it actually gets Scorching rounds. So let me pull up Greg here. Or not Greg, let me pull up Carl. And then clear the board and then pop Song. So you actually get Scorching rounds. And Yeartide actually has like decent DPS for a primary. And then in combination with Temp Blast, it's pretty good. Like, man, it's obviously nothing compared to Mint Retrograde, but yeah, it's not bad. It's pretty good damage for a primary. Like I said, Scorching rounds, so yeah, it's a primary. And then here you go with Mint Retrograde. And there you go. So mid retrograde doing good damage. But like what's like pretty good is like the sunburst grenades. They actually do good damage. So if I were to do this, spawn Carlin, and then put some nades on him, you'll see they do pretty good damage. I didn't even get all my nades, and they're doing good damage. Like, there you go. There's 17,000 damage, and I just stuck them with a couple nades. So, I mean, yeah, it's pretty good. And then not even to mention, like, anytime you do that to a boss, you're going to stun lock them. They're going to be, like, flinching so hard, they're going to stun lock. So they're basically not going to be shooting you at all. And then this build technically is not even optimal. If I had the Aeon set with Force Converter, I could technically get Speed Booster, which is a damage resist. So that would make this build even better. But, I mean, yeah, it's just pretty fucking strong already. I mean, that pretty much wraps up, like, my recommendations for, like, different characters. I mean, just, like, abilities are very strong this season. Fonts are so prevalent now, like, more than ever. Because fonts are just so important. Like, you can't really get, like, optimal stats. You can't get, like, enough of one stat and have, like, good stats on anything else without nuking everything else. Because, like, that's basically how it's gonna go. If you want good stats, you have to use fonts. If you want one good stat, you can get away with not using fonts, but every other stat's gonna be so bad. It just won't feel good. They are patching the whole Song of Flame, melee stacking, grenade stacking shenanigans, but that doesn't really matter. So, I mean, you just stick with your typical regular ability spam in your general play, and you're set. I mean, this is like the freest meta we've had for abilities in a while. Other than like Titan last season. But like, almost every character has a decent ability like spam build now. Like that's like, can be used in high-end content. Like Lightning Surge is super good. Sunbracers are super good. Grapple melees are super good. Like, and I didn't even go into like really like the main like just survivability builds. I didn't even cover Inmost Arachne on Hunter. I didn't cover Skullfort Titan on Arc. Like just all those builds are crazy this season with all the stacking changes, with additive buff, not nerfs but buffs. I didn't even go into any of that. So if you have any extra questions, leave that down in the comments. I'm a starting out YouTuber, so please subscribe to my channel. If you like this format of video or have ways I could improve the formatting, please leave them in the comments down below. And bye guys.